A, B, C. A always B, B, C closing. Always be closing.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Another episode of Scared Money Don't Make Money. I'm glad we finally got to make this happen. Last time I messed it up, so we finally got Alex on the line. I'm gonna let him introduce himself in a second, but as always, if you like the content, what we're talking about, recruiting, marketing, leadership, entrepreneurship, anything in far between on how to make your money work for you and so forth, click the like button, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat. Now we're on Clubhouse as well. So, click the little ding. So I'm gonna let Alex get to himself and tell us about who you are, man, what you're about, what you do.
What's up, man? I'm the founder of a company called Impaxs Marketing. We help companies win new clients and build industry-leading brands on social media.
Okay, and how did you get started into that? Like, what was your, what was your initial job, and how did you fall into what you do now?
Yeah, so I was in corporate America for almost a decade, man. And I got to a place I was doing sales, business development, growing underperforming territories, that kind of stuff. And it had some success, right? It was a good job, six-figure job, good benefits, that kind of stuff. And I always wanted to start my own business. I always wanted to
Mhm.
make a bigger impact on the
Yeah.
world while I was here. And I knew there was a greater calling for me. But I just never pulled the trigger. I just, for some reason, and whatever, I think we all go through this, right? The survival brain kicks in. We wonder,
Yeah.
well, I don't know, what if it doesn't work, or it's a mountain to climb? There's a lot to learn. Is this right for me? And so, like everyone, you have doubts, or you blame timing. Is this the right time? That kind of stuff. Or you get comfortable in your job, you start making
Yeah.
good money, and you say, well, maybe I don't need to go that route. But anyways, I finally ended up taking the leap in late 2019, and really won my first customer early 2020. Then COVID hit, and by July, I had won my first customer in February, which was I had started off on LinkedIn, helping people
Yeah.
win clients, producing videos, building their
Yeah.
brand. Client one was one in February 2020. I had replaced my six-figure income for my full-time job in July of 2020, and I
Oh
said,
wow.
"Peace." I said, "Peace." So,
Wow.
so
Okay.
I put in my notice, and I was out.
Got you. Okay, so and that's one of the interesting points that like I always like to ask because I feel like there's this common misconception sometimes when it comes to entrepreneurship is people just like take this plunge, right? They're like, nope, I'm just gonna go dead broke or this if and this idea is gonna be smart. But I feel like if when you talk to real, even Damon John talks about he's like he worked at Red Lobster to fund Fubu. He's like, I didn't just quit my
Yeah,
job. Like
yeah.
you you can believe in the dream, but be smart about the dream. Another recruiter I know, Ben, he didn't quit his job at Bing until, like you said, he replaced his income. At which point he's like,
Yeah.
okay, now that the work twice I've done twice the work, I can put all my stuff to this actual thing that I want to do. Um, so do you think was there other things that went into that, or was it once you made your six figures, you're like, bet I can do this, let's go?
Well, it wasn't the perfect time for me to leave. I actually thought that I was going to be leaving about right now. I thought it was going to be
Okay,
early 2021. But
yeah,
here's what happens, man. And anyone that's had a full-time job and a side hustle probably can relate. When
yeah,
you have two things that take up a lot of your time, and I also am a dad of two amazing daughters, so they're
yeah,
important to me too. So then I've got this full-time job, which was demanding. I mean, I had people reporting to me and stuff,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I was in charge of growing a new division. So it wasn't like it was just I could sit back and do a couple hours of work. It
Yeah,
was they demanded a lot out of me. But then, so in the beginning, the side hustle thing was fine because I was like, all right, I spend a couple hours after work doing this. Well,
yeah,
then it started to grow. I started to get more clients, and pretty soon, what happens to most people is you have two things that are
yeah,
demanding so much, and
yep,
you only got so much time in the day. So one of
mhm,
these two is going to
yeah,
start that you have to sacrifice. And
yeah,
so I started to sacrifice my full-time job, and I
yeah,
started because I believed in my dream and what I was doing, and I knew this long term was going to work.
yeah,
And then I had to make a decision of like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm either going to really suffer in my full-time job and they're going to
correct.
have conversations with me about it, or I improve my full-time job
Yeah,
numbers, but I significantly hurt my business, which was my dream, and I just refused to give up on that dream. And it was going quite well. I was making more money there than I was in my full-time job. So I
yeah,
said, look, this isn't the perfect time. I don't think there ever is a perfect time. I had some money stashed away because I wasn't spending it. And I said, let's do it. Let's roll.
Nice. And so I found you, as I'm sure most people find you, because of how creative your videos are on LinkedIn. So I know that we talked about this when we had our virtual coffee to set up this meeting, but run us through kind of that creative process when you started, because obviously you started doing something a lot of people weren't doing, which is the green screen and things like that. So where did that idea and that process fruition from?
It's interesting, man. If you want to know the truth behind the green screen, I've
Bring
talked
it.
about this a few other times, but I actually, to be totally honest, obviously now it's spun into something completely different, and I've added all types of creativity to them, and a lot of people are using green screens now, so it's kind of
Yeah,
cool
yeah.
to have inspired a lot of people. It's really
Yep.
awesome, man.
You were the
But
guy.
because one of my missions is to help people unleash their inner creative, their inner potential, because I believe that everyone has that, some form of that inside them. It's a question of, do they feel comfortable enough to release that and unleash it on the world? But
Yeah.
the reason I got a green screen was because I was just separating from my ex, and I was moving and I was transitioning. I had no place really that I thought was good enough to shoot
Yeah.
videos. Now, at
Yeah.
the time, LinkedIn was a different place at the time, right? There was, if you're talking about 2019, there wasn't as many videos. It had just started to kind of come out from
Yeah.
videos, and it wasn't as authentic as is now. It was a
Yeah.
little bit more
Everybody was
professional. And
very,
so,
very, very tightened up.
yeah. So man, check us out. So I saw these coaches, these entrepreneurs, these people that I thought I wanted to be sort of like, and they all have these bookshelves in the back and these fancy offices. And here I am, man, I'm in this condo, and then I move out in this like small 1-bedroom apartment that I have like nowhere to shoot videos or anything. And I'm like, what if I just got a green screen, and then I could kind of replace a decent looking background so no one would know that I'm in this little 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And so I thought that's what I needed. I thought it really came out of necessity. And so I started with the green screen, and then I said, you know what? I'm going to show my personality, man. I'm going to make some
Yeah.
videos that are different than what everyone's doing the same type of videos. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to add characters. I'm going to add humor. I'm going to tell a
Yeah.
story. I'm going to elicit emotion from my content as I teach people the
Yeah.
valuetainment aspect. So I took the green screen. I'm like, screw making this an office. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going to make this like different, like buildings and like scenarios and settings. And I'm going to tell stories and really engage people in a way they just haven't been engaged for on LinkedIn. And to be honest, it's one of the most exciting things about me doing this is the inspiration for other people to get out there and express themselves how they want to express themselves.
Yeah. And so one of your partners in crime, Jared, we had on the show. And so, even he has too been inspired by the green screen thing. And so I've told people about your guys' show that you do where you act out scenarios. So how did that come about?
The improbable show.
The
Yeah.
improbable
So,
show.
so I'll tell you exactly what happened. So literally I applied for LinkedIn Live. I didn't get it. And I was so busy with the business, other stuff, making the transition that I never really came back to it. And I finally said, you know what? I need to get a live show going. I applied
Yeah.
again. I got approved 3 days later. I hit up Jared and Matt Wells,
Yeah.
because they were in my boot camp. They were clients of mine. I hit them up 3 days later. I sent them a voice note. I'm like, guys, I've got LinkedIn Live. I got an
I'm
idea
in.
for a
I'm
show.
in, guys.
I'm in. I'm in the matrix. I got an idea for a show. I go, it's improv. We're gonna do
Yeah.
comedy improv for like the first side of it, and then back it up with business insights on the back end, so people again get some entertainment, but they also get some value.
Yeah.
And they hit me back, and they're like, "Yeah, it sounds cool, man. I think maybe we might want to do that." And I'm like, "Awesome, awesome." So I'm like, "Hey, logistics. Here are the dates." Da, da, da. And as we started getting closer, I'm like, all right, guys, here we need to think of some topics and stuff like that. And they were like, you mean like we're actually going to do like live comedy improv? Like last like that show, what's it called? Whose line is
Oh,
it anyways?
whose line is it? Yeah.
And I go, yeah. I go, that's what I was talking about this whole time. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. We didn't know. We thought you meant just improv, like talk about stuff off the cuff. I'm like, no, I mean like take a business scenario and act it out and make it funny and improv style. Like we're on stage basically, but we're doing it live in
Yeah.
front of LinkedIn. And they were like, oh my gosh. And let's do it. This is crazy, but let's do it. And so that was history, man. Literally the next Tuesday, we set the time and date and we took action, and we've been doing it every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time ever since.
Yep. And I think that's when you talk about that, that's exactly kind of what happened with this show was
Yeah.
like I told you, me and Roy both love recruiting. talk about it all the time. And I was like, we should do a podcast. And he was like, oh, yeah, like, that'd be cool, man. Like, we should totally do it. And that was on a Friday. And like Sunday, I was like, hey, we have a YouTube channel. We have, I ordered my microphone. We're doing this. And he was like, oh, we're doing this. And I'm like, yeah, bro, like, why not? And,
Well, they,
and by the way, our first guest is like next week.
well,
Okay.
I think that's one of the keys, man, in anything that you want to find success in, is that a lot of times people think that they need to find all of this 100% clarity first and then go take action. And it's actually the reverse. You take
Yeah.
action, you have a plan or a strategy or something that you think is going to work, but then you quickly take action and you find clarity along the way. The
Yeah.
action comes first before a lot of the clarity actually shows up.
Yeah. I've heard a quote the other day, and it was kind of along that same lines. It's like there's the people who wait for the right opportunity, and there's the people
Yeah.
who know that movement is what's required to make the opportunity work.
And you got to fail fast and learn and move on. Give something enough time to actually work. But like
Yeah,
I test things all the time, and I'm
yeah,
like, if it doesn't work, if I've tried it and I've really put an energy and effort into it and given it a chance and it doesn't go anywhere, it's peace. I'm out. I'm to the next thing. It may
yeah,
take it's 10 ideas to get one or two that really pop.
yeah,
So you can't be scared to test and try things, and if it fails, move on, learn and
yeah,
move on to something else.
yeah. It's the whole Newton thousand experiments, and the light bulb was number 1001, right?
Is that really what it was?
I don't know, but I hear that
Something
quote all
like
the
that.
time. If it's real,
Yeah.
cool. If it's not real,
It's
good quote.
probably there. There's definitely some truth to it. I'm sure. I'm sure there
Yeah,
is. And the thing is, you don't get to hear about all the mistakes and failures that people had. So if you look
yeah,
at like a Zuckerberg or a Bezos or
hmm,
an Elon Musk, surely they had trillions of ideas and they
oh
even
yeah,
acted on it, on businesses, inventions, software, all types of stuff. But you don't see that. You only see the finished product and what actually
yeah,
happened. Just like when you think about a great like Michael Jordan, no
yeah,
one remembers all the shots he missed. No one
yeah,
remembers that it took him like 9 or 10 years to even get like his first championship. I think it took even
yep,
longer than that. Like, so he
yep,
failed so many times, but we remember the game-winning shot. We remember the championships, the 6 rings.
yeah.
So people got to remember that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes as you build. So don't compare yourself to someone that's already here when you're here
Yeah.
trying to climb up the ladder.
Yeah, and so I have noticed that as LinkedIn has grown, I think a lot of people are starting to be cognizant of the whole what is the vanity metrics, right? Like you see a lot more people who are cognizant of it as like, face value, it looks like these people are doing all these things, but we cannot compare ourselves to what
Right.
we're all doing, right? Myself included, I'm one of the only military members that I know of with that's not retiring, who's not getting out of the military, who is so active on LinkedIn. But I see people like you and Jared and like Rich Cardona, Joel, all these people who I'm connected with, and I'm like, man, back in my mind, love to get as much engaged, do all these things, but in the other side, I'm like, but I'm doing own things in my own way, like
Right.
and doing things the way that's working for me, and I am making really valuable connections. And so those are things I really like to point out when we do the show is, as military members, as we've started to, I would say, move into a more digital recruiting environment, right? It is super foreign to a lot of people. So at
Yes.
face value, they're like, how do I create that one piece of content that's going to get thousands of, and I'm sure you
Yeah,
thought the
yeah,
same when you
dude.
first started, like, how do I create the
Yeah.
best thing that gets millions of views and I take over the world? And the
It's a
one thing I've
compound. It's a compound
exactly
of it's a compounded effort.
consistency, and that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing I always like to make sure I ask you guys about, because there is so much consistency that comes to it. I created like a little group of military recruiters from active reserve, Air Force. And I told them, I said, I made a mentorship moment. I have a challenge for you if you want to accept. I was like, every day, one piece of original content straight up. And I was like, I want you to go to 10 other people's pages, completely different people every single day, and engage with those people. And I want you to tell me after 30 days what happens, and but consistency, they'll learn, is really what's going to make that huge difference.
It's like anything that we try to do in the beginning, for some
Yeah.
reason with content, there's certain things in business that people think they should be amazing at right away and get results right away. Like if you've never swam before, if you've
Yeah.
never been a boxer before, would you ever show up to a boxing gym or to the pool and expect to be Michael Phelps within 30 days, 90 days, 6 months? Absolutely not. Not even close. Yet people show up to the content game or to business and they expect their business to boom right away or the piece of content to blow up overnight or go viral. It's
Yeah.
just not going to happen. We didn't walk when we're little babies, like when we're toddlers. We learned to walk by falling so many times. We crawled so many times.
Yeah.
And then we started stumbling around and holding on to stuff. Eventually, we got to a point where we started to walk and then we started to run. But what we didn't do was we did it when we fell down or we couldn't walk yet. We didn't give up and say, all right, screw this walking thing. I'm just going to crawl the rest of my life. Right. We kept on going, man. And that's the perseverance. You're going to get punched in the face a million times, no matter what you do, but especially in the entrepreneurial world or when you're putting yourself out there with content, you're going to get knocked down. You're going to get kicked while you're down. You're going to get, oh my gosh, what the hell am I doing right now? I don't even know what I'm doing. 3 days ago, I thought I was the top of the world. Now I feel like I don't know anything. Like these are completely normal thoughts, and your ability to just sort of remove the emotion of it, feel it, but then let it go and keep moving forward. Because guess what? 2 weeks later, 2 months later, 6 months later, you're going to look back and be like, man, I'm glad I didn't quit.
Oh no, for sure. So let's pivot. I'd like to know, being as is, most of your creativity is obviously from who you are, and that's what you're most known for. Like, tell the people like where you're from, what, like, where you grew
Yeah.
up, where you went to school, stuff like that. I want to know a little bit of background about Alex.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I was born in Joliet, Illinois, right outside of Chicago. When I was real young, we moved to Springfield, Illinois. My dad got transferred down there. He was in the state police. And
Yeah.
so I grew up in a town just right connected to Springfield, right south of it, called Chatham. And a small town. Grew up there almost my entire life till I was 21 and went away to school. I have a mom and a dad. They're still together. They're retired now. My brother was in the Air Force. He was in the ROTC program. Well, he was always, so ever since he got into college, he was involved in the military, and he's still in the Air Force now. He's getting ready to move to San Antonio. He's in Tucson. Yeah, man.
Hey.
So yeah, he'll retire in the military for sure. He's made a great career out of it. And then he'll get a different job afterwards because he'll still be young as hell. So he'll be 40 something. So your whole life ahead of you. It's crazy, right? Yeah. Yeah. So that's it, man. But I was a troubled kid, like the typical backstory. I went to 3 different high schools. I was in trouble all the time, with the law, with my parents, with school. I wasn't the average kid. I was the kid in math class where everyone else was paying attention to the algebra. And I was writing raps, or making up stories in my head or whatever,
Yep.
And so I didn't realize that I was going to be there was a way to use the creativity in a practical way. I thought it was like, hey, if I'm not going to be a famous rapper, entertainer, like this is it. I got to go figure something else, figure something else out. And what I wish I would have known back then was I would have grabbed myself and been like, Alex, don't give up on the creativity stuff. You just got to understand that there's different ways and applications at which you can put this stuff to use. So I just needed to tweak the way I was thinking a little bit, but I was sort of on the right track when I was 14.
Yeah. No, and as you're saying that, it brings up an interesting point in my mind is, do you think that with the internet, with social media, with the things that are going on right now, because I have a similar story. I think we talked about it. I went to 13 schools growing up. I went to almost a different school every single year. Single
Crazy.
mom, only child. My mom always apologizes for it, but thanks, Mom. It made me who I am. And so,
That's
you know
right,
what I'm saying? And so, do you think it's given people like us, some would consider what the underdog, right? The guy who probably wasn't the best at school, things like that, an opportunity to really, like you said, show our creativity and really like the value of what we bring past, scholastics and things like that, which is the things you can't teach, right? I mean, let's be real. I mean, I feel like the world is making a shift now, right? It's less what was your grade and more like how are you evolving as a person,
Yes. 1000%, man. It's just giving everyone access to be able to have a voice, to be able to start a business, to be able to unleash their creativity. I mean, I think about me, for example. I mean, obviously, if the internet and social media had been around back then, because when I was a kid, when I was 14, if you wanted to be an entertainer, if you wanted to write music and get it seen,
Yeah.
you had to go through some big, long
Oh yeah.
channels of
Oh yeah.
political landscapes, and you had to get seen by Dr. Dre had to put you on. Like it's so different. It's so different now. And look, not to say that you could just make some songs and you're going to blow up. It's still going to take a lot of work and a lot of
Yeah.
rejection either way. But you've
Yep.
got access to post songs to 10 different platforms right now,
Correct.
daily, weekly. Like you stay consistent with it and you can make things happen. You build a community. I mean, yes, absolutely, man. It's a completely different way of just living nowadays. And you have the things that you have access to. And I even think about my own business. I started really 2019, but really it was this business in early 2020 when I won my first customer. I built something from scratch, from
Yeah.
nothing. I didn't even come from a marketing background. And I thought that was a negative at the time, but I realized that it was actually a positive because I did things so differently. It made me
Correct.
think about things differently than a normal marketing way wouldn't think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, starting something from scratch like that on an online business, working from home, like how would you do that without
Right.
the internet?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I think, and I think I have been trying to push a lot of my friends, counterparts, stuff like that. Is, what, we're doing a clubhouse about it tomorrow for like my military folks. It's called Military LinkedIn, or LinkedIn Military, and the the name of the clubhouse is "Who are you exactly?" Like, it's great that you're Sergeant so and so. It's great that
Yeah.
you're a recruiter, but who are you? Like, what are you gonna do when you get out? And if you're not thinking about that now, you need to start, because
Yeah.
it's
Look,
becoming more and more valuable.
well, because I imagine if you're in the military, you attach a lot of your identity to who that person, that military person is, right? And there's a lot of
Correct.
pride. There's a lot of pride, and I
Yep.
understand that totally. There should be, but it's also saying, hey, I'm also Alex or John or Sally, the person.
Exactly.
I'm not
Yeah.
just the military member, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, for sure.
No, and that's a big thing, I think, when it comes to creativity. And that's also another thing I like about the internet. Like this show, um, it's in a funny way, it has motivated people. Like, a lot of my friends are like, oh, like, you're like, you do good in recruiting, but you are still doing like your own thing, and you're out there doing your podcast, and you get to talk to like great people and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, like, and they make fun of me. They're like, scare money don't make money. And I'm like, hey, but the tagline, and
Yeah,
that's what
that's right.
matters.
That's right.
um so what's the future look like for you and your company? Like, what are some of the things that you're doing to evolve your business and maybe move with the market? Are the trends that you see, like,
Yeah.
what you're the man, so
Yeah, well, there's so many things, man. I mean, when you own a business, it's like if you want to continue to grow and continue to evolve, you have to evolve as a person. You have to evolve as a
yeah,
company in the way you do things, especially now because things change so fast. Like
yeah,
20, 30 years ago, the rate of incline was a little bit slower than it is now, where it's like if you flash forward 5 years from now, it could look like a completely different play. So yeah, I mean, in terms of my business, I started off very heavy on LinkedIn and I
yeah,
still am. And video has been huge for me. The things that I'm going to get into now are, more of the video email marketing. How do I build an audience outside
yeah.
of just social media platforms, leveraging my website to bring people to there, to have content there, creating more shows,
Hmm.
ads, that kind of stuff. Like there's definitely several things that literally today, like I'm getting into. And so I'm excited about it, man, but it's just like anything, you got to be willing to put yourself out of your comfort zone because you do something well for a long time. And it's easy to say, all right, this works so well, I'm going to stick with this. And you kind of marry the idea, and
Yeah.
then pretty soon things change. And so, yeah, if you want to evolve, you got to constantly be learning new things. You got to
Hmm.
constantly be testing and trying new things and put yourself out there and just, again, not be as scared to fail at it because it's never going to work in the beginning. It's going to take some time and a lot of effort.
Yeah. So, speaking of the video, obviously, anybody who's on LinkedIn knows that's becoming such a hot topic right now, right? You got, what, Vidyard is a huge one. I forget what one of the other ones is, but there's a couple of them out there, right? Is there
Yep.
one that you're using in particular, or are you doing your own kind of like native thing based off of what your product is?
I do all native, man. All native. Yeah, I create my own videos. I script them, or they come from a podcast interview, wherever the video actually the raw form comes from. And then, I have my editing team that me and them, I kind of creatively direct it, and they do all the editing, and they do an amazing job. I owe them so much credit.
Yeah.
They just do a fantastic, they just do, I wouldn't be here today without them for sure. They do an amazing job. But it's all native. I post it natively to LinkedIn. And then even for the video DMs that I would send in the actual DMs, I use just a LinkedIn app. I pull it out.
Yeah.
You hit that plus button on the left-hand side, and then you hit record, and you're sending a message to somebody on a more of a one-to-one basis. But it's right through LinkedIn.
Yeah. Whatever that sound was, that was perfect for while you were talking.
What's that?
The sound that this popped in, like literally, you're like, yeah, you pull up your phone, it was like, ding,
and it popped in, yeah, yeah. It was the email that came through. Yeah. Perfect timing, yeah.
Perfect timing. It's so no, and those are the type of things that I'm really trying to educate, like I said, my people on is. These are things you got to know, even in a sense for recruiting for what I'm doing, I want to see how I can leverage those things as well. So, VDR is something that I'm looking at using just because of, the way that the platform is. And like you said, video is so much more personal, right? Takes a little bit more time, but at the same time, I hate the email blasts, as does everybody. I'm sure you get gajillions of them because you're as founder or CEO or whatever, and everyone's like, "Hey, Alex, do you want to know how we can help your product?" No,
it's terrible, dude. You can never pitch in the DMs. Yeah,
and it's and I like that the podcast has become a conduit for conversation for me especially, because as much as like you talked about the stepping stones, right? As much as I would like to rush into doing my own recruiting thing that I plan on doing when I retire, I like that I'm doing it now while I'm still in the military. I'm doing my job for them because I can create more slower lasting relationships with people. Like you said, there's not that sales not coming, right? Like I'm like, hey, you should just let me recruit for you. And so it works out well. What trends do you think you're seeing minus like the video? Is there anything else that you're seeing? LinkedIn Live still haven't been accepted for it. Applied 5 times, but I'm gonna keep trying because I'll try 15. I'll get
You're still not. Yeah,
man. I don't. I mean, I don't.
Yeah,
as everyone has said, I feel like you just never, like with LinkedIn Live, you just never know.
Yeah. I mean, video will continue to get more popular and more people will use it. And I think LinkedIn's going to push it. My gut feeling is that LinkedIn's been a little bit slower on video. I think from a professional standpoint, they're nervous to let the gates open on that one. But I do think they're going to have to, because if you look at all the platforms now, they're very either audio or video based. TikTok, Instagram, all these platforms, really the text portion. If you go on other apps, there's not much text that's dominating like it does LinkedIn. So it's sort of like, I think there'll always be an element of it, but they definitely have to find ways to add some of the creative video touches. And they've done that with stories. They've done that with live. So you see there's kind of evidence that they're moving that direction. But I mean, in terms of what's hot, yeah, no doubt about it. Clubhouse, man, I'm on there at least a few times a week for sure. And it's a hot app, man. And what I'm curious about too is how other apps not necessarily do the exact same thing, but how they find ways to connect people on a live kind of basis, like Clubhouse does. That's what's unique. Like we can go live on LinkedIn and it's a great time, but our audience is very separated. It's very separated, and we're kind of talking to our audience. Clubhouse, you're talking with people, and people can jump on the panel and they can speak right away, or you can sit back and listen, whatever you want to do. It's a very live conversation. It's a type of interaction that you just don't get on any other social media platform as it sits February 2021.
Yeah,
right. I do think that will change. that will change. That will change for sure. They have to. They'll adapt. And I'm sure Zuckerberg, I'm sure he's got to be thinking up of things because he's the king of seeing something that's going to pop and then making his, just like he did with Snapchat, he adapted the stories, then the TikTok thing, he did like he'll probably have something like that. But if you're LinkedIn, you got to think about that too. How do you create a channel where people can communicate in a forum like that? Like even it would be cool to hop in the LinkedIn app and just go to a room, right? Like you see the feed and then you slide left and there's rooms. And then it's just like, boom, you can hop in the rooms. Like LinkedIn easily could have done something like that. You know what I mean? So it's like, who's going to innovate? Who's going to evolve? Not give up what you're doing that's gotten you this far. Because I think like reality is like we're always going to want content. Like people want to consume content. I don't always want to jump in a room and have conversations. Like Just like Netflix is always going to be around, Amazon Prime, like there's people want content for sure. And there's not enough of it on LinkedIn, but we also want live stimulation too. And that's what's great about some people are like Clubhouse taking over, I'm like, it's not taking over. There's always 4 or 5 platforms that are super hot at any given time. And one goes and one comes in, right? Like, remember how hot Snapchat was for a while?
Oh,
like who's even on Snapchat anymore? It's freaking, I mean, like seriously, dude, I popped on there last night just to see like if anyone was on there. All my friends were off. Like, so it's just like, Facebook, they're still big, but they're not doing quite well. They're not trending up. The demographic has changed. And so we'll see what happens with them, but they've got Instagram too. So Instagram, TikTok, Clubhouse, LinkedIn. I mean, those are the 4, I think, power players right now for sure.
Yeah. TikTok, I have been reluctant just because I'm like, oh, I don't want to. Because
you know what though, dude?
Yeah.
You don't want to know what though? For military recruiters, gold mine. Because you want to know why? 16, 17, 18-year-olds coming out of high school, dude, that is the place to be. For sure. The fun videos, the shorter videos, the showing some action, the showing why it matters to serve, there's a really good strategy around that.
Yeah, and what the problem is, the military as an organization is weird about the whole TikTok thing because of the issues, the issues they had. And, I have like a government phone that's like connected to my government system. And so that's why, but
I get that.
I obviously have another phone. So but you're right. It is a thing. That's one of the things I talked to Joel about is he said the exact same thing. You said, where's the demographic at?
Right.
Don't be
you guys
reluctant.
Got to hit people. Yeah. Younger. Yeah.
Go to where they are. That's what that's any good salesman knows. You go to where the client is. You don't, I think too many people are so concerned about, bring the client to you. Well, the client will come to you if you're in the same place that they are.
Right. Exactly, man. Yeah. Like LinkedIn. I mean, obviously there's a lot of benefits to being on LinkedIn and that kind of stuff. And I think as the LinkedIn demographic, if LinkedIn is smart and they want to stay around long term, they got to figure out how to engage high school or college folks better than they are now. Because people
100%.
right now are a little bit intimidated by LinkedIn. They're not quite sure how to use it. They see it as overly professional. And so seriously, I mean, if you talk to 18, 19, 20-year-old, why aren't you on LinkedIn posting content? They're like, I don't know. It seems like it's not a place where you post content. Like
that's where my dad hangs out all day.
Exactly. And obviously, and I think the reason I think LinkedIn knows that, and they're obviously smart people, like I'm sure they see it because they've introduced things like stories, which is obviously for a younger demographic, right? They've done LinkedIn Live. So they're trying to get people to say, hey, LinkedIn is a professional place, but it's also fun. And we've got different people coming in here, and you should be here if you're 18, 19, 20. It shouldn't matter what age. You should show up here and get value. And in fact, you need to be here because the people you want to work for, the companies you want to work for, they're here, So
I think you're right when it says that. I think there's a rebranding that needs to be redone, right? In a sense, and that even goes for military people. I know, people who are at the top of the food chain in the military. I mean, generals, no presence on LinkedIn. And granted, I guess when you're a general, you're like, I don't really have to be on there. But in a sense, because the first thing any person talks to or says when I talk to them is, well, I'm not looking for a job, so why would I be on LinkedIn? And I'm like,
that's the problem, right?
And exactly. And so that's why I always thought, I'm like, man, if they could just do some type of rebranding where like, this is where professionals meet, or something, if you take that tagline, LinkedIn, I want something. And so,
and you also, there's also a pace of play too, where they are probably have a strategy in place, I'm sure, but it also takes time, right, to convert.
Correct.
Millions, hundreds of millions of people and billions of people worldwide to get to see a company a different way. You kind of got to have a strategy on like how you evolve it versus being like, all right, today we're this, now we're this, So I think they're making steps in the right direction, I would think. Otherwise, if you can't figure out a way to engage high school or college kid, those at that age, that demographic, even the 20-year-olds, I think they're going to be in trouble. And I think that you're going to see I just think that in the next 3 years, you're going to see another business social media platform, whether it be from Facebook or TikTok or wherever it comes from. But I think you'll see another business-based platform that challenges them.
that probably tries to be a little bit more
more fun,
like
more
fun, like
yeah, more modern, more modern.
that makes sense.
LinkedIn
That makes sense.
LinkedIn's been around for so long, man. It's the oldest social media one of the oldest social media
I didn't
platforms.
realize
But
that.
yeah, it just was like dormant for a long time, man. And everyone counted it out. So I think the fact that it's gotten here is pretty impressive. I mean, the last 2 or 3 years, it's completely kind of changed its identity in a way, right? In a way,
Yeah.
it's become more of a content platform versus before 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago. You just didn't even think, I wouldn't even have thought of LinkedIn to post content. But
Yeah.
now the problem is they don't have the mainstream, and they probably don't want everyone. They don't need everyone, but they
Right.
still have a lot of people that say LinkedIn, like, yeah, I'm not looking for a job, or I don't want to. Why would I post on
Yeah.
LinkedIn? And just people just don't think about it, especially the younger demographic. They don't. It's not like hip enough for them, you know.
Yeah.
Then
No, I feel you.
you go too far the other way, you lose some of the demographic that likes it because it's not some of the
True.
other play. And I like it because that's where I think the balance is. Because if you go too far on one side and it becomes a TikTok or an Instagram, to me, it loses a lot of what makes LinkedIn so special is that you got to show up with some substance, some
Correct.
content, some thought,
Yep.
some creativity, some values. You know,
Yep.
that's what's different. If I go search Instagram right now, I can find 20 pictures in a row of somebody standing in their bikini or someone on the beach or someone with
Yep.
no message at all, but they look good.
Somebody's selling something.
Yeah, which I'm not knocking that. Like everyone's
Oh
got their
yeah.
thing, but you could not post pictures of you on the beach with your shirt off and expect to get 1,000 likes on LinkedIn. People would be like, where's the message? Like, what is the
What are you
substance
doing?
behind this?
Yeah.
So that's what I like. And that's part of the brand, right?
Yeah. No, and I agree. And I think that's why I like it so much because it takes me out of my comfort zone, right? Like had I never got on LinkedIn, I would have never met you. I never met would have met Jared, like all these people who have, in essence started filled my cup with things I never would have known
Yeah.
about. Um because I'm not, I heard someone talk about the whole imposter syndrome the other day, and I don't feel like that, but in the back end I'm like, am I supposed to be here? Like I'm in the military. I don't really do any recruiting here, but I'm just kind of like meeting all these people and like, whatever. And so, but I think you're right. And it's nice because I know that when 9 times out of 10, if I reach out to somebody, like you said, there's gonna be a value added on both ends of the stream, right? Most people
Yeah.
aren't very aware what I do and how I do it and the mentality of military members and stuff like that. And vice versa. You never being around in the military, it's nice to hear your perspective and what
Yeah.
the civilian market is doing. So I think that's a big push I put on a lot of my people. But so as we near the end, I got 3 questions for you. So I heard something yesterday, and I know we talked about this, the whole like it's not on my calendar, it ain't happening type shit,
Yes.
and but I heard an interesting quote yesterday, and it was time management is a waste of time. Action management is what you should be focused on. And so what they meant obviously was, you know, it's good to set a time for certain things, like yes, like I need to finish this task within this amount of time, but the
Yeah.
ultimate goal was what? I actually need to finish this task. And so
Right.
if you finish the task early, you're not going to bullshit for those next 30 minutes or make the task go that entire 30 minutes just to do it.
Right.
It's be focused on what are the things that need to be done and then
Right.
press.
Exactly, man. That's it. If you're blocking time out to do activities, but then there's not a set, goal or action or KPI behind that time, then yeah, you may have blocked out an hour, but were you
Yeah.
really productive? Did you really use that hour to its full extent? So that's why you got to have a system or a process to say, okay, I'm going to set aside an hour, and in that hour, I'm
Yeah.
gonna, complete this video. I'm going to make this video, or I'm going to send 15 video DMs, or I'm going to connect with 50 people, whatever it is. I think that's important to have. You have, because some people are like, I worked so hard today. I worked 16 hours. And it's like, but what did you do for 16 hours? Like, did you really accomplish, like, could you have done that in 8 or 9, maybe.
Yep. No,
So
and that hits hard with me specifically because in military recruiting and I'm sure you've heard in recruiting in general, they'll be like, "Hey, you need to make cold calls for this hour. Just get on the phone and make cold calls for an hour." And you're like, God, I could just be so much more productive. Like if I if I, and then granted, I know I'm not saying cold calls don't work, but in a general sense, like I think when I was taught time management, it was like an hour, and you stick to that hour, you do that task for an
Mm-hmm.
hour, and you're like, and I found myself like as the lemur because I was like, but I did it in 15 minutes, but you're telling me I'm wrong because I didn't do it for an entire hour. So,
Yeah.
interesting point that got brought up, and I always wonder, how other people feel about it. But
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's all about getting things done. So
yeah,
what some people need a time block, some people don't. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to look at your, in the beginning of the day, say, what does a good day look like? And then when you
yeah,
end the day, be able to look back and say, did I accomplish what I needed to accomplish today to move
yeah,
me forward, to move the business forward? And, sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. And you got to learn and move on and make the best of it.
yeah. Okay. And so second question is, when people, with you being an entrepreneur, with you being a content creator, first piece of advice when someone's like, man, if I wanted to get into that, or, I want to own my own business, or I want to get into these things, what's kind of that like first piece of advice that comes to your mind that you would want to tell them?
If they want to become an entrepreneur, own their own business,
Yeah.
the first thing I would ask them is why. Why does it matter? Because I think a lot of people think they want to do certain things, but because it sounds cool, or because maybe someone told them their friends do it, or they've seen it somewhere and it looks like it's amazing. Like you don't get to see
Yeah.
all the behind the stuff shit that I got to deal with. That
Yeah.
but
Right.
and that just comes with the territory. Comes with anything. So I would ask them why, but then the second thing I would quickly go into is make sure it's something that you enjoy doing and that
Yeah.
you're decently good at. Like you've got some natural knack for it. So I think because if it's not something you enjoy and they say, you're passionate about, it's going to get, when the times get tough, and they will get tough, and you will get hit with challenges and things won't go your way. If you really enjoy it and you've got a passion for it and it runs deep within you, you'll stick with it. Right. It makes the tough, long days worth it because you enjoy it, and you're not going to enjoy every single aspect of it,
Yeah.
but you enjoy overall what you do, the impact that you make. And having a little bit of natural talent in it helps, because
Yeah.
if you try to do something that you're just horrible at, but it sounds cool and you love it, it's a tough road, right? Versus
Yeah.
you having saying, hey, I enjoy doing this. This brings me a lot of joy. Also, I'm like pretty decent at it. Then you've got something to build up. Then you've got something to build upon. So that's the first thing I would say is don't do it for the money. Don't do it
Yeah.
for, not that you can't make a lot of money, because you certainly can, but find something that even if you made no money the next 6 months at, you'd still enjoy the ride and learning and the process.
Yeah. 100% agree. And our last question, and I'm sad Roy's not here, but I'm sure we'll meet again. Is when you hear the phrase "scared money don't make money," what does that like? What does that make you feel inside? How do what are your thoughts on that phrase?
It makes me feel like if you're not bold, you're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
If you're not, and I even beyond money, I mean, obviously, when you think about business, being an entrepreneur, you think differently about money because you have to spend money to make money. You have to take risks. You have to you have to spend money on programs or hiring or whatever it is. And so that's one component. But I also just think about you just in life, whatever you want
Yeah.
to get out of life is there for the taking. The question is, who's going to put in the work?
Yeah.
Who's going to take the chance? Who's going to go for it? Who's going to get knocked down and get back up again? Who's
Yep.
not going to be afraid to fail? Like
Yep.
who's going to make the sacrifices? That's who gets what they want out of life. The people that sit and are scared and are in their comfort zone and they're just comfortable, those are
Yeah.
the people that end up regretting what they did with their life. People choose every day comfortability over the life that they really want. I'm part of my mission is to show them that go for the life that you really want.
I like it. I dig it. So this is your time for self promotion, man. We always like to give our guests, tell people where they can find you, what services
Yeah.
you provide. Like you said, what clients you can get, all that stuff. This is your
Yes.
opportunity.
Yes. So primarily I help founders, coaches, small business owners. If you want to win clients on LinkedIn, generate leads consistently, if you want to build that digital brand across whatever platforms you think is best, I focus heavy on LinkedIn, of course, and specifically on video. If that is your part of your strategy for 2021, which it should be, and you feel like that you need some direction or you need some guidance, or maybe you've been at it a little while, but it's not quite bringing business to you, there's something missing, and I can help you with what that is and get you on the right track.
And I can attest to that because that's exactly how I found Alex. So, hey, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
coming
brother.
on. Another episode of Scared Money Don't Make Money, people, and we appreciate you.